I am sure sports. You know me there. I'm coast to coast representing. I mean, I say this is righteous representing for Omar. You don't know, come get the sports over here from near and far. Boy. Me say I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. If me not sure, that me not say it. Know who score, that me not say it. Never know no game play, that me not say it. If me never seen a game, me no know who play. For your sports news, better come over here so. For your soccer news, then come over here so. If you don't love sports, still come over here so. For the day done, you a go love over here so.
So when it comes on to behavior concerning football, Jamaica is decent. I am sure that if we can get all of these things done, set in place by the end of April, it gives us enough time before the World Cup campaign. Not afraid of no Brazil, no Argentina with these crapper players. We are good enough. Remember to like, subscribe, share. Listen, comment, let me know what your thoughts are.
Hello, good afternoon. How you doing out there? I'm Pioneer. It's been a while, and we are here, and I am sure sports. And today, good folks, we are going around the NBA. All right, a lot of interesting things happening in the league. At this time, we're heading close to the All-Star break. Interesting days. The league is poised, great things happening around the league. We start today by looking at the leaders in the NBA. The Phoenix Suns is a team that at present has the winningest record in the league at this time. They are sitting pretty, first team to 40 wins this season in the NBA. The Phoenix Suns has been the most consistent team in the NBA this season. They are on their second block of winning 10 games consistently. They are on a 10-game winning streak right now. Remember the last time they had an 18-game winning streak, which was ended by the Golden State Warriors in December. They have now put together another impressive win streak of 10 games, and they are looking good. Being led by Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Their perennial all-star Chris Paul. Devin Booker has come into his own in the last. Well, he has been playing at a consistent level throughout his career, but in the last 2 years, with this team that he has had, he has been leading his team pretty well. The Phoenix Suns is sitting pretty in the NBA. They have retooled this year. I think they have one of the most balanced team. They have depth in their team. They have added people like JaVale McGee, people like Bismack Biyombo, which has fortified their strength at the center position, which last year they came up a little short because DeAndre Ayton coming up a little small in the final. So they have reinforced their team by adding people like JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo, and those two gentlemen have been playing quite well this season. So the Phoenix Suns are sitting pretty atop the NBA standings. The Golden State Warriors are second in the West. They are second overall in the NBA. They have been playing some good basketball. We recently saw the return of Klay Thompson. He has not looked like himself 100%, but we have seen sparks of the old Klay Thompson since his return. He has had a few good games. His shooting percentages are not what they usually are, but he's showing that he's on the way back The Golden State Warriors at this time is playing without their vibes master, their engine, Draymond Green. He has missed the last 14 games to injury. All things being equal, the last injury report that I saw state that Draymond should be back a little around the All-Star break or a little after. He's dealing with a back issue that has resulted in him having some issues with his calf. The Golden State Warriors are also without James Wiseman, the number 2 pick from the last year's draft, the 2021 draft. He has been out since last year, got injured close to the playing tournament last season, has been out, had surgery in the off season, had another surgery to correct some issues in December. All reports are that he should be back in short order, and that should that should augur well for Golden State with him coming back. I don't know if when he comes back to fill that center position for Golden State, how that will impact his the team overall. The Golden State Warriors this time is showing some weakness at the center position. That position is normally played by Draymond Green when they play a small ball lineup. Kevin Looney has been holding down that position. But the draft of Weisman was done with a view of filling that role, shoring up the center position. Last season, he showed flashes of brilliance. However, those of us who watch the league could see some weakness in his game. Now, over the last 2 years, I would say there has been a resurgence of the big men in the league. People like Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, people like Nikola Jokic, are showing the value of having a quality big man in the league. All right, I think Golden State at this time is a little bit light at the center position. I have advocated in recent times for them to do a trade and acquire somebody like a Miles Turner, to shore up that position. But the Golden State Warriors, they're rolling at this time. Watch a game last night with them. They sat most of their starters. They were without Clay, Steph. They were obviously without Draymond. Andrew Wiggins sat out. And they were without Iguodala. They played basically their bench. Everybody excepting Looney, who is a starter. And they had a nice comeback win against the San Antonio Spurs. They were down by 17 points at 1 point. And they made a rally to come back and win the game. I think it was 124 to 120. All right, I think that has set them up pretty well. It shows the depth in their squad. It shows that, they go as far as maybe 14, 15 deep. They played a 9-man rotation last night with maybe 8 of their main players out. So that says depth, that says a quality squad. Andrew Wiggins, who I mentioned earlier, has been named a first-time All-Star. We know of Andrew Wiggins being a number 1 draft pick. Was labeled as a bust by a lot of pundits. But since him being traded to the Golden State Warriors, he has shown his quality. I heard him in a recent interview where he was saying that, it's like he has had a resurgence of his career. He said he didn't know basketball could be this easy. It's obviously a joy playing basketball at Golden State. So Wiggins has been flourishing at Golden State, and this year he has been named an All-Star starter. First time All-Star and being named a starter. That is an achievement and an accomplishment for the young man. The rest of the West continue to be a chess game. What we are seeing, or we were seeing, some flashes and some coming up of the young Memphis Grizzlies team being led by Ja Morant, who himself, in his 3rd season, has been named an All-Star starter. this young man has been showing that he is one of the future stars or the future superstars of the NBA. Been playing lights out this season on both sides of the court. Has led his young Memphis Grizzlies team. They are now sitting at third in the West. They have had some misfortunes in recent. They have lost some games in the recent week or recent weeks. They are sitting in third place in the NBA and third in the West. Great. They have a good team. They have some young players, promising players. Jaren Jackson Jr. They have people like Desmond Baines. Right now they are playing without Dylan Brooks, who should, add some spark to their lineup when he gets back. So the Memphis Grizzlies, good squad. I think they are gonna make some noise come playoff time. With every team in the league playing, every team excepting the Oklahoma City Thunders have played at least 50 games so far in the season. The Oklahoma City Thunders have played 49 games. The season is poised. It's poised. It's the picture of the NBA season. The playoff positioning is kind of taking shape at this time. So Memphis, it's good for Memphis to be sitting at third in this time in the West. The West is a tougher conference, maybe not as competitive as it used to be. The East is probably a little more competitive, but the teams in the West are of a higher quality, and this is my opinion, that the teams in the West this season are of a higher quality than the Eastern Conference teams. A team that has been having a rough time of it is the Utah Jazz. At one point, they were sitting at second in the West. They are falling off a bit. I think they are now fourth or fifth in the standings. I've been having a rough time. Donovan Mitchell, their perennial all-star and leader, is out. In a game earlier this week, they also suffered an injury to Bojan Bogdanovic, one of their better players, one of their leaders also. He's out. I think in the last 10 games, they have lost maybe 8 of their last 10 games. They have been falling down the tables. They started out pretty well. I have serious concerns for the Utah Jazz at this time. They have been making the playoff for the last couple of years, maybe the last 4 years since Mitchell has been in the team. They have been making the playoff. They have been knocked out in either the first or the second round. Many persons had them as one of the teams to possibly come out of the West this year. However, with what has been happening and what has been transpiring with them in the recent weeks, things are not looking good. Bogdanovic, his injury, he suffered an ACL injury. It puts him out of the season for the rest of the season. So it's going to be a rough. They have people like Mike Conley, Georgian Clarkson, Rudy Gobert leading the team. They had brought in persons like Rudy Gay into their squad. They had done some retooling in the offseason, but based on these two recent injury history to Mitchell and to Bogdanovic, it's looking a little bit, questionable and a little bit shaky for the Utah Jazz at this time. Interestingly, a team that everybody has eyes on is the Los Angeles Lakers. They have fallen from grace. Presently sitting in 9th in the West on a 4-game losing streak. LeBron James has been ruled out with injury. He was assessed and analyzed with some swelling to his knees. There's no timeline on his return. It's not looking good for the Lakers. Anthony Davis was out injured. He came back recently, but somehow the Lakers are having chemistry issues. The great Russell Westbrook has been up and down this season, mostly down, I must say. He has had a few games here and there, but I think where the Los Angeles Lakers are suffering is defensively. They continue to suffer on the defensive end. They cannot defend a lead. They cannot run with these younger teams that are coming up in the NBA right now. All right. So even when they are scoring 115, 120 points, they are struggling to keep teams from scoring on them. So it's not looking good. They are sitting in ninth. I think this year they might be looking at the play-in tournament again. So it's a little bit dicey right now for the Lakers. They are about 3 games ahead of the Portland Trailblazers, another team that continues to disappoint in the West. Portland is without their frontman right now, Damian Lillard, who is out injured, but some persons think he's just sitting out the season. He's looking to leave, so there are rumors of him being traded. What will happen with Lillard is yet to be seen. So the team is now being led by people like CJ McCollum and Norman Powell. There's the young Simmons is there. He's playing well. They have had some recent success. At one point, they were sitting as low as 12th in the West. Now they are at 10th, trying to make a resurgence. There are some other teams in the West that are doing well. Teams like the Denver Nuggets with the MVP, Nikola Jokic. They have been rising recently. A team like Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, they have been coming on. Nice resurgence from Dallas. They have shown the quality of being a all-around team. I've seen marked improvement on the defensive end from Dallas. We know their offensive force with a Doncic and Porzingis and people like Finney-Smith. They have suffered a little bit of misfortune recently with an injury to Tim Hardaway Jr. It looks like a season-ending injury. Still waiting on some reports on Tim Hardaway Jr. But the Dallas Mavericks, they are doing well. They are striving in the West. As I said, the West has the better teams for me. But the East is where the competition is quite hectic. So we are going to take a look at the East right now. Early in the season, you had teams like the Washington Wizards who jumped out front in the East. They have failed and they have kind of faded. They're falling off. The Chicago Bulls at this time leads the Eastern Conference. They are being led by DeMar DeRozan, who himself is an all-star starter this year. They have Zach LaVine, who got injured some time ago and is back from injury, and they are putting it together again. They at one point in the early part of the season, Chicago Bulls looked like the team to beat. They suffered the injury to LaVine. They fell off a little bit, but since he has been back, they have been making a resurgence. They are now sitting at top of the East again. People like Vucevic, along with DeRozan and LaVine, they are making a nice big three in Chicago. I think Chicago will make some noise in the Eastern get that off. All right. My apologies for the inconvenience of being muted. I hope I'm coming through loudly and clearly now. All right. All right. I was analyzing what was happening in the Eastern Conference. All right, and I was taking a look at the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets. All right. So let me go back to the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, who are sitting at second in the West at this time. For second in the East. My apologies. The Miami Heat are sitting at second in the East. I was commenting that for me, the Miami Heat is possibly the most dangerous team in the NBA at this time. All right. When I look at their roster and what they have coming back in the near future, it speaks to a team that could take down possibly any team at this time. When you look at people like Bam Adebayor, Jimmy Butler, when you have a Tyler Hero coming off the bench, you have a Duncan Robinson who is a sniper. Plus, you have people like Kyle Lowry. I think in terms of depth in the East, I think Miami is the deepest team in the East. They did some retooling after losing badly to the Bucks last year. They did some retooling. They brought in people like Kyle Lowry. Victor Oladipo, who was traded there, has not played a single game yet for the Miami Heat. He is touted to be coming back shortly. And when he comes back, it's going to be a full force and fully loaded Miami Heat team. I think they could take down anybody in the East, but that's left to be seen. The Brooklyn Nets, who was everybody's favorite coming into the season, have been having some issues. Kevin Durant is out injured. There is no timeline yet on his return. Kyrie Irving continues to only be able to play away games, and that is an issue. There are certain cities that he can't play, and he definitely can't play home games in Brooklyn, and he cannot play in Madison Square Gardens. When in the games that he have played, he himself have looked pretty good, but in terms of the chemistry, I think it's on and off. This on and off issue with him playing here and playing there is affecting the chemistry of the team. I think I watched them in a game last night. I think he's struggling with his cohesion with James Harden. This moment, it looks like he has it together. The next moment, it's an on and off thing. I think it's affecting the team. I think they need to get it together. Their bench seemed a little light for me. If this trend continues, where Kyrie plays only away games, I'm not seeing Brooklyn coming out of the East. The defending champions, Milwaukee Bucks, I think is getting it together at the right time. They have had some bad losses. They had a bad loss 2 nights ago to the Denver Nuggets, but I think they are a healthy squad right now. People like Drew Holiday seem to be cruising through the season. When you are a defending champion, when a team has, reached the pinnacle of success, sometimes it's hard to get up for insignificant games. So when I look at the Milwaukee Bucks right now, I see a team that is, positioning themselves for the playoff push. Giannis continues to play at a high level. For me, he's one of the persons that I would consider right now to be an MVP candidate himself, along with Joel Embiid and the Joker and Ja Morant. I think those 4 are leading the MVP race right now. But the Bucks are the defending champions. They are going to take some beating if they remain healthy with all their pieces intact. They have the blueprint for success. They have tasted the success. So for any team to knock them off, they're going to have to come good. The East is competitive, as I said earlier. Cleveland Cavaliers, a young Cleveland Cavaliers team, is showing some spice and some spark. There are a couple of young teams in the NBA that I've been looking at. I'm liking what they're bringing. I'm liking what these new crop of players are bringing. And the Cleveland roster is, they have some of those players. People like Garland, young, new to the league, full of fire, fearless. Another team in the East that I am liking, another young team, is the Charlotte Hornets, being led by Mikal Bridges and LaMelo Ball. Nice young team. You get the feeling that they can beat any team at any night. All right, but all around in the East, it's quite competitive. When I look at the Eastern Conference, I see a team like Atlanta Hawks, who made the conference semifinal last year, who is struggling to get into a playoff position. Teams like the Indiana Pacers seem to be totally out of contention this year in the East. So the East is full of competition this year. My pick, though, for the East, I'm looking at an Eastern Conference final if everything goes as I'm viewing it right now. I'm seeing the Miami Heat versus the Milwaukee Bucks in an Eastern Conference final right now. As to the West, for me, the two teams that sit atop of the West right now are going to take some beating. I'm very much looking forward to a showdown, a Western Conference showdown between the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns. I could see that series going 6 or 7 games. Both teams have depth. With a return of a healthy Draymond Green, and if James Wiseman can come back to shore up the center position for the Warriors, because I think that is the only weakness in this Warriors lineup is at the center position right now. If the Warriors can shore up the center position right now, they're going to take some beating. I think they are light there. Kevin Looney as a backup for Draymond Green is a little bit light. They are in need of a big man. When you look at what the Phoenix Suns have at center, when you look at DeAndre Ayton, when you look at JaVale McGee, the games that I've seen the Warriors get beaten this year, and for those who are asking about the Warriors, the games that I've seen them look light in this year are the games that they have come up against quality big men. They were blown out by the Milwaukee Bucks. They looked like a hapless team. They had no answer for Giannis. He was running riot because they don't have a quality center. They are lacking in rim protection. So unless the Warriors can shore that up, unless James Wiseman comes in as a 7-footer and provides that for them, they could be a little bit vulnerable at the center when it comes playoff time. Outside of that, for me, the Warriors are a quality team all around. They are loaded with shooters. Klay Thompson being back, even though, as I said, he has not returned to his normal self, his normal efficient self. With people like Jordan Poole coming off the bench, they have depth. They are loaded with shooters all around. Defensively, they are still ranked as the number 1 defensive team in the NBA right now. They have quality defenders. People like Gary Payton Jr. comes off the bench, provides that defensive spark. So when Draymond comes back and that unit gets together, the Warriors, for me, are going to take. It's going to be hard to beat the Warriors. And as I said, the only weakness in their team for me right now is at the center position. If they can shore that up via a trade or via the return of James Wiseman, then for me, they are going to be almost unbeatable. There is a myriad of injuries that is still affecting the league. A team like the Clippers. The Los Angeles Clippers continues to suffer from the absence of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. As it stands, we are still not seeing a timeline for any of these two gentlemen to return. Kawhi has been out for some time, as you know, from early in the playoffs last year. Paul George went down earlier this season. Without Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, I give the Clippers very little chance out west. They have been having a little bit of success recently. Their role players have been rising to the occasion. People like Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann is playing pretty well. They are not looking too badly, but when it comes playoff time, for me, it's gonna be like a struggle for them to contend with some of these more favorable teams that I mentioned earlier. As it stands right now, the Clippers are sitting in 8th. They are they're a game ahead of the Lakers. I am expecting them to be around without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I'm expecting them to possibly be in the play-in tournament. It's gonna take a lot for them to get past teams like the Denver Nuggets or possibly the Dallas Mavericks. All right. Out in the East, a team that everybody needs to watch right now. For me, is another dangerous team. I think they have the perennial. For me right now, Joel Embiid for me is a front runner for the MVP. And he continues to lead his Philadelphia 76ers, though they're a little bit short-handed, playing without Ben Simmons, who continues to have his issues. There are talks of trades. The Philadelphia 76ers at this time is looking to trade Ben Simmons before the trade window. They are trying to bring someone in to help Joel Embiid, who is playing at an MVP level, as I said. They have recently seen the return of Seth Curry, who is holding down one of the guard positions. But they're a team that is resurging right now. They are actually, after recent results, they are now sitting at second in the East, actually. I didn't look at the standings earlier, but they are now actually sitting at second in the East, thanks to the great play of Joel Embiid. They are gonna be there, but I think they are a little light in terms of the depth of the team. So for me, I don't see them coming out of the East. If they could trade Ben Simmons and possibly get a quality piece, there are talks of trading and getting somebody like a Bradley Beal. If they were to get somebody like a Bradley Beal, I'm sure that would give them a decent chance of doing well in the Eastern Conference come playoff time. As I said, people, in a few weeks, we go to the All-Star break. The All-Star starters have been named for both the East and for the West. In the East, we have Kevin Durant as a starter. He's a captain for one team. We have Joel Embiid. We also have DeMar DeRozan as an All-Star starter. There are arguments as to who should have been included and who should have been left out. But for me, an All-Star selection is neither here or there. It's just the fans rewarding, players for their quality play early in the season. For me, the NBA season starts after the All-Star break, going into the playoffs. In the West, as I mentioned before, Ja Morant has been selected as an All-Star. We also have Steph Curry, who was hot early in the season, selected as an All-Star. We also have Andrew Wiggins, as I mentioned before, who is a first-time All-Star selection, and is, as a first-time All-Star selection, has been selected as a starter. LeBron James and Nick, who is actually the captain in the West, and Nikola Jokic completes the All-Star starters for the Western Conference. Later today and tomorrow, we'll be having the coaches and the media votes for the rest of the All-Star selection. That should be interesting as to who gets in and who is left out. For me, I'm looking for people like Devin Booker, Chris Paul from the Phoenix. Interestingly, the Phoenix Suns sits atop of the NBA and doesn't have an All-Star starter. A lot of persons have a problem with that. But I'm thinking that Devin Booker and Chris Paul should get in as All-Star selectees. And After the All-Star break, as I said, people, we'll see the NBA season taking shape fully. We'll continue to monitor here on I Am Sure Sports. We'll continue to look around the NBA, and we will make these updates a more regular occurrence on I Am Sure Sports, the channel that is the most credible and the most informative and continues to provide the widest range of content, sporting content, people. All right, for I Am Sure Sports, I am Pioneer. We'll be back in another day or two with another update around the NBA.